Hey guys, so I wanted to quickly talk about VR. And I really wasn't going to make a video, but then of course Obi-Wan comes out and really kind of puts that leak and rumor out and kind of hammers home that Nintendo is going to use VR, and they're going to use it sooner than we think. We saw the patent, of course, and we saw that VR was a possibility. They're at least considering it. You know, they thought about it enough to draw up all the specification stuff in their patent for showing a headset device, basically. And I think a lot of us were kind of wary. We're like, that's cool, but they might not actually use it. Patents get drawn up all the time for things that go unused. This might be one of them. Well, here comes Obi-Wan, says, no, they're actually really working with VR. They're developing games for it right now, and goes into talk about how you'll be able to plug the Switch in from the front so that it can run at full clock speed to run these VR games. And this, of course, got me thinking, is VR a good move for Nintendo? Would they actually benefit from being in the VR scene, essentially? And I actually think they would. I actually think it would be huge for them, and I actually think that the mainstream gamers or the mainstream customers would really benefit from Nintendo being there. So I'm going to kind of talk to you guys from like my business side of my brain, my business perspective, because I was essentially running stores and stuff and interacting with customers who would come into the store and buy video games constantly. So I kind of have an idea as to what the mainstream person will come in and talk about and look for. So the first big thing, obviously, is that the Vive, Oculus, and even Sony's VR unit is not selling, I think, as well as they would like it to. I think it's a struggle to get people into VR because you're asking them to spend a lot of money for something that they have not tried or have only heard about. So here's somebody walking into a store, and it's the hardest thing in the world to sell them Oculus or a Vive, because not only do they need the headsets, they need probably $800 to $1,000 computer as well. So if they don't already have that, they have to go worry about that. You know, first you need a system that's going to even run this thing. Now, it's easier because of the PlayStation VR, because you need a PlayStation 4 system, and then you get the headset. You don't have to worry about specs with the computer, video cards, RAM. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You just buy the system, you buy the headset, you go home, you fiddle with all these cords, and then you start playing. That's fine. However, it's still expensive. I mean, the VR with everything is like $400 or $500, so it's technically more than the system. And this, to me, is where Nintendo can actually pretty much put a stranglehold on the VR world, basically. Now, they're not going to appeal to the hardcore consumer with VR. These are the people who are buying the Oculus Rift, they're buying the Vive, they have a very nice computer, and they're playing these games in the comfort of their own home that way. That's fine. They have no problem tweaking things, playing around with drivers, overclocking if they need to. They don't mind playing games that aren't quite finished yet. That's perfectly fine. Those people need to be around because they are the ones who are essentially driving the VR scene forward. However, we have to keep in mind that VR is still very new and it's struggling to grasp on to the mom and the dad who walk into a store and buy something for their son for Christmas. These are the people that make video game companies a lot of money. And it's very hard. It's very hard to get these people to buy something that they don't know nothing about and they're not sure why they need it. So this is where Nintendo comes in. If Nintendo shows up with the system, you buy the Switch, that's great. And then maybe you see this headset that they come out with. And it's not going to be a headset that has a bunch of stuff in it. It doesn't have to be tethered to a system, because the system, from what we've seen with the patents and what we've seen with, for example, the Samsung VR unit, is going to have the system slide into the headset. It means that the headset is mostly going to be a piece of plastic for the most part, with probably some structural support, maybe lenses if they need them. And that unit could be anywhere between $50 to $100, and it's a much more appealing price to the mainstream consumer because they don't need to buy, you know, a massive $500 unit. And then they have to buy the system also. So all of a sudden, $900 down the drain for something they don't know about what they're going to do with it. Also, impulse buy would be much easier for the Switch if you're buying a $50 to $100 headset on a whim. They could also eventually maybe get to a point where they are packaging this with the system. So let's say the system comes out and it is $250. Well, maybe the VR unit with the system and glasses or goggles or headset, whatever you want to call it, it's $300 together. Now the mainstream consumer just has this unit, and now they can go home and they can play it and try it out. Maybe they like it. All of a sudden they're looking at things like the PlayStation VR, they're looking at Oculus, and they're looking at Vive because they're looking for the next step into VR. And that's the biggest problem with VR right now. They just can't seem to appeal to the low end mainstream gamer who does not go out and spend exorbitant amount of money on this stuff. If you can get these people in to try it out with an entry-level system, which could be the Switch, all of a sudden, these people are looking and much more interested in stuff that they wouldn't have thought of buying before because they've had that entry-level experience. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the Switch is going to come out and it's going to be with the VR unit the way it works. I'm definitely not saying it's going to be better than, say, the Vive, and I'm not saying it's going to be better than Oculus. I don't even think it'll probably be better than the PlayStation VR, but it'll be more affordable, and I think it'll be easier for, like I said, the mainstream consumer to kind of digest, and get it and try it out, because not only will it be affordable, but there'll be characters they know. I mean, let's be honest, Mario will be plastered all over that VR unit for a game of some kind, and then even people who really get into, like, the niche games. You could have a Kid Icarus game. You could have a Metroid game. I think we all want a Metroid Prime VR game. That was the first thing I thought of right away. I think we all wouldn't mind having a Star Fox VR game where we're actually in the cockpit flying around. And these are all great ideas they can explore with VR. But we have to, like I said, we have to keep in mind that in order for VR to move forward, it cannot keep appealing to the expensive side of it. There has to be an entry point somewhere. And I think this entry point makes sense because if you look on Amazon sales right now, if you've kept up with them at all for holiday, the PlayStation VR, the Oculus, and the Vive, all sold obviously on Amazon. You can buy them through there, so they'll track them. None of them ranked anywhere near the top at all for the holiday season for wearables. It is classified technically as a wearable for the headset. But guess what did rank in the top 3 actually for wearables? The Samsung VR unit. Because it's cheap, it's essentially a piece of plastic you snap your phone into, and you already have the device because you probably got it for $200 when you went and upgraded your phone. So this tells me that that entry point, that sweet spot of anywhere from $50 to $100, if they need to go more, they can, because I know that Samsung VR unit was at times $150, depending where you got it from. That's fine. But if we have these people who we didn't have before show up to the VR game, all of a sudden I think the money will start to pop up to obviously the people making these things, and there'll be a big push to keep VR going. So Nintendo can really put a stranglehold on this entire VR field by coming out with that. Now it's up to them. If they really want to do it, they can. But they need to bring it with good games, so we need to have the experiences that we were even just talking about. They could even come up with more creative ones. Indie developers could get it on the scene. I'm sure the possibilities are endless with VR and Nintendo. But what do you guys think? What's the one game you wouldn't mind seeing on this system? And do you think this is actually a possibility? And what are your thoughts of just VR in general moving forward with this entry-level consumer? Definitely like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you guys tomorrow for Newswave.